Greetings. Farming is one of those things in Sengoku Dynasty that's going to take your village from surviving to thriving. Let's look into how farming works in Sengoku Dynasty, including how it works for you as a character compared to you as a worker. What are some of those best practices you can get compared with things that are better for you to plant versus what are better for the villagers to plant? Turns out there's only a couple that are really better for you to do. And what are some tips and tricks that can go into having us do this farming situation better? Alright, without further ado, let's jump right in, and we'll start this off with looking at how do we even make this happen in the first place. In order to start farming, you need to have built your workshop. So once you've built your workshop, we are at a point where we can go down to farming, and then we can build our first land field. And you'll see it, once it's unlocked from building your workshop, it just takes sticks to build a field. A field will take up spaces and have slots. So when I left click, I can then make a space. Each of these squares represents one square that you can grow within. And generally for vegetables and herbs, for you it's going to be 9 per, but for your workers it could be different, and it really depends on the crop. Once you have it laid out the way you want, keep in mind the number of sticks I'm paying is 30, which means this field size is 30. That is now available. If I don't want to have this here, I can get rid of it. If I want to build a water field, that one says in your unlocks that it has to require that you're required to have clay in order to do this. Now I have a little trick for you. If you have a shovel, when you head on over to the area across from Sasogi, and you'll notice that I decided to build here in Sasogi, just because it's easy, it's quick, and it's nice for kind of the RP idea that we're helping to free the people of Sasogi and help them rebuild. It's up to you how where you start out. It's up to you where your village is. But as you are traveling through your Sasogi area, do make note of the clay here, and when you bring over your shovel, you can actually dig up these clay deposits. I'm just pressing E to dig them up. It says it's permanently removing them. I can also just hold down the shovel button. I should be able to just dig them up as well. But it does go faster if you just press E, bring them up. And now from here, we will have a large collection of clay. If we want to get some stones while we're out and about, we can as well. And it does turn out that if you find a small stone deposit, you can also use the shovel to dig them up rather quickly. Once we have clay and we have stone, then we can make a water field. I did indeed need a little bit of stone, so now we have stone. Let's go make our water field. Water fields work similarly, where we take and we left click, and then we'll build this thing, and the size is based upon the number of squares we do. It'll cost you 1 clay and 1 stone per. This is a size 30, and this will allow us to progress a long ways into the future. Alrighty, now that we know how to make our fields, what do we do with them? In order to just assign a worker, we need a seed bag, and that is it. For your workers, all you need is a field available and a seed bag. Now, you can buy seed bags from Chiome, who's up on the hill. If you're at the start of the game and you're saying, oh man, I don't have any money, how am I supposed to actually buy these things? You can either go and, once you have farming technology unlocked, wooden hoes sell for great money, and you could just build a bunch of these and then bring them up to Chiome. Once you have planks, you can get planks from tearing down the buildings in this village. The wooden hoes sell for better than the shovels, so I do recommend that you build the wooden hoes more than building the shovels. If you finish the quest line for the Inari Shrine, you should also get a bag of gobo seeds, which will help you out as well. Let's go check out what Chiome has. From her, at least now, I can buy a gobo seed bag or a rice seed bag, and rice is fantastic, so we'll go for that. The trick with rice is that you do need to have access to an iron cooking pot in order to make cooked rice out of it. You can just plant the rice and make it, and then you'll have koji mold and you'll have rice. And that brings us to the idea of what do you get out of these yields? So as we think about assigning our workers, the thing that we're going to plant really depends on the season, and depends on what we want to get out of the deal. Our plants are broken down into cereals, rice, wheat, millet, and beans, canola, soybeans, and lotus seeds, veggies, which there are a large collection of, and herbs. Those are our major categories. You cannot plant mushrooms at this time, but you can use a forager's hut to gather mushrooms for you. You can also use a forager's hut to gather vegetables and herbs, but honestly the yields are significantly small in comparison to having fields. So we want to focus on using our fields for those veggies and herbs, and our forager's hut can focus on getting us mushrooms. Later in the game, you will be able to craft any number of your seed bags as long as you have some of the resource and fur. We would go into our tailor's workbench, and then we can go into a land field, and we can go into our water field, and we can see that once I have bought some of these resources, once I have canola seeds, for example, I can make a canola seed bag with 4 fur and 25 canola. Gaining fur, well, you can purchase it, but it's very expensive. The best way to get it is to be sure that in your warrior tree, you have maxed out animal trophy hunter, so you're extracting the most you can out of animals, and then go hunt deer in the Segi region or here in Sasogi, or hunt boars, which tend to be a lot easier as they come right after you. The rest of our bags can be bought here, and you can see what seasons they're plantable in, and you can see how many of the resources you need in order to make them. Alright, well, we'll need to get tea leaves. This is tricky. You can buy them. That's easy to do. As a matter of fact, a lot of times the easiest way to get some of these resources is just go to a vendor and buy it. There are cooks, there is Chiome, and there's also Aratane. And if you travel to Aratane, you can buy a large collection of these resources. So we have our seed bags, and we now know that we can plant them only in certain seasons. So when we look, we are in spring. It's day 5 because I need to clear all this stuff out and build this village to show this stuff going. So if we want to think about what things we're going to plant, let's take a person and let's assign them. Yunue does not have a job yet. Let's get her a job at our larger water field. Now, if we want her to grow rice, we will make sure that we raise this up to the maximum amount she can get away with. And at 20, based upon our current happiness and worker productivity, she's going to get us 320 rice in 100 Kolju mold this season. We could also have her try lotus farming. Oh no, we can't. That's a summer only crop. But we could try wasabi. And with wasabi, we're going to end up getting... We don't have a bag there. There we are. 260. So if you're noticing that there's nothing here, you got to make sure you assign it. 260 food, but it's also 260 herbs for in this case. I tend to focus on rice production for mine. You'll notice that the bag itself in here, you'll notice that the bag has an icon on it. This is down by just over a third. This will last us 3 seasons worth of planting. Every villager, every seed bag, they're all the same. So when you assign your worker to it, and you can also obviously assign a worker to a land plot as well, where we just take and we assign, let's say we want to plant our gobo, we'll get 180 gobo out of this, which is 180 vegetables, which can then be used for cooking vegetable meals and things like that. Or you can have your people directly eat it, or you can make cooked gobo. The options are up to you. It really depends on what you need. Early on, I tend to find myself needing veggies just for a short bit while you're making those simple vegetable meals, unless you found some meals out and about while you're liberating. Or you can also make do with tea leaves if you've gotten tea leaves since it's spring. Also soybeans since it's only growable in spring if you plan on getting all the resources, but it's really not necessary. It's handy with the villagers that we always know exactly what they're making and we actually know exactly what amounts they have. Now, if we want to do this work as the farmer and we want to see what we can get away with, what we need is a hoe, and we need seed bags and a water bag and a fertilizer bucket. Now, you can make a fertilizer bucket yourself by making a compost workstation, which is easily built early on when you have the resources. Not so easy when you think about that rot situation in this first season. I go to Iwasaki and I travel this whole eastern road, and then I go here and I buy from the beggar merchant who is on the roadway. He is selling rot, and you can buy 100 rot for almost nothing, go figure. And then you can come back and you can drop that rot into your composting bin, and then you'll end up with 4 fertilizer buckets, which is going to take care of your needs for quite a while. Then what we need to do is essentially find a land field or a water field and just click, and then we will, with a left click, we will have our field cultivated. Now, the same thing works in your water fields. You just simply click 3 times and you're set. With a land field, you will have to cultivate, which is the 3 strikes with your hoe, and then you'll need to plant your seeds, and then after that, you'll need to water them. Now, we'll look at a comparison on how fast things go. I'll plant 3 varieties of some plants, and they'll have different rates of growing, which, here you go. You should see on the screen now, here's our different seasonal plants that we can grow, their type, and how fast, based upon what I've observed that they grow, and what their yields are expected to be. Let's plant a few of these and observe what happens. Now, based upon my experience in planting these seeds and looking at what you can expect to gain out of it compared to what you can expect to gain with a villager doing the job, I find that in a lot of ways, the only crops that are worth growing for the character our soybeans, since not only do you get soybeans, but you also get a benefit of having some extra resources, some sticks. And they also yield higher when you grow it than they do for your villagers. And not by a huge amount, but by enough that makes a difference. I've also noticed that growing tea is absolutely not a good idea for you as the main character, simply because the pace of its growth is so absolutely slow. It happens to be one of the slower growing things, as well as taro seeds or taro. Alright, so we're planting each of these. With lotus, it's the wrong season, and obviously it won't let us plant something out of in the wrong season. So we'll get our wasabi in here and start growing that. Now you'll notice there's an arrow, and that shows the progress of how fast it will grow. So this can be fertilized and can be watered, and nothing's going to start until we get that going. Matter of fact, you can see right now there's no arrow on it, which means it will not grow. So let's just water these, and then we'll go from there and we'll do a comparison to see how long it takes each of these to go. If it ever rains, it's a great advantage for you, because when it rains, it takes care of the watering for you for your land fields. Obviously your water fields, it doesn't matter. They always count as watered. There we go. We'll add that. Can be fertilized as our next step, so we'll take out our fertilizer bucket and we'll slop some stuff on there. And now you'll notice that there are 2 arrows. With the 2 arrows, we're seeing that now we're growing at a faster rate, and time will pass for us. With these, and we can do the same thing in our water fields, we can fertilize them. There we are. Now they'll set to grow. We'll do a comparison where we have the single arrow versus the double arrow, and we'll let it go. As they're growing, you can then go off and do whatever it is that you need to do during the day. Go liberate Sasogi, go do all the things you want to do, and just let the crops kind of go. You can also sleep and then wake up, and we can see what's going on there in a bit. Let's skip forward a little bit, and let's see what happens in 4 hours. Now this is obviously the end of the day on day 5, so I will have to skip to the next season in a little bit, but let's just look at what we see. Now you'll notice that some of our crops have changed the way they look. This says it can be weeded out. When I do that, you'll notice we get 3 arrows worth of growth, and now we are going faster. The rice says the same thing, but I couldn't see the particular graphic that would be. And you'll notice that when we compare our rates of these things, it is much faster, nearly doubling, for many of ours to grow when we have fertilizer and water on them. Now leeks, you can also tell the rates of these things. I consider leek one of the fast growing, and you can see that it's ahead of millet and it's ahead of wheat. And it's not just ahead because I planted it before the other one. It's ahead because it's a faster growing crop. Tea is an incredibly slow growing crop, and honestly I don't find it to be valuable to plant unless you plan on planting it at the start of the season and walking away for a very long while. Soybeans would be a useful one to plant just because, again, it's one of those few that allows you to gain more resources as the main character than a villager would get. As you can see on the screen here, if I have a worker assigned to this, they will get me 16 soybeans. When I plant, get 47 out of one single plot, and I also get 2 grasses at the same time. So I definitely, as a character, produce more than my villagers can. Now obviously these things can be augmented and changed by having perk points spent in the right spots. So let's do a few things. Let's assume we're going all farming all the way. We'll buy these. I'll buy Yabusha's Blessing so we can have better loot. Now let's raise the productivity 1 level, and let's see what happens with our people and how much they are making in our water field. What are managing the job. Now, they were making 16 before. You may note that that's not a change. But what is a change is that now I'm up to 21 slots that they can fill. So it did not change the amount per square that they produce. What it did is it changed the amount of squares they can work. We'll check that with our other person who is working in our land field, and just to verify that that's the case. So let's get them all the way up. They were only at 20 before, and there we are at 21. Let's add our next point into that, and let's see what else we get out of this deal. Alright, with that, let's see what we get. And now we got 22. So it's increasing our yields by increasing the number of slots that can be worked. And our last bit here that we can get, obviously, is going to get us in a spot where we have our final and most that we can augment them to, and we get to 23. The rest of this has to be handled through happiness, though that is a longer investment of time to get to. Now this playthrough is a lot further along, and obviously is at a point where most of my villagers are content, and I've unlocked most of the items in the area and have a large population, considering. So let's go and check out really what we have now, and I've maxed out my points and my skills, and we're still sitting at 23. So based upon this, it does not actually appear that at this time that our contentness level, keep in mind they are ecstatic, that's not actually having an impact on things. And I will show you that here in Way of the Leader, I have already maxed out worker productivity. So it is not really necessary to build fields that are larger than 24 at this point. Perhaps in the future this will be patched. But as of this recording, it's just worker productivity training that does the job. Well, let's see what happens as we, as the village lead, the main character, what happens if we take some of these skills that are supposedly supposed to increase the time. Let's max it out so that we have our player crops growing at the fastest rate we can possibly get away with. The next best thing we could possibly get is all the way out to here, but it's going to take us a lot of points just to get ourselves spent up to that point. Same setup as before. We've fertilized, we've watered, and now we're letting it go. Now with this one, you can see the very fast one. Look at that. It's ticking as we watch. We can see it going. Okay, well, it's not quite the rate of watching paint dry, but it's a thing. Let's take a quick 4-hour nap, just like we did before, and let's see what we get. Alright, with that nice rest, let's come back out here. Ooh, and check it out. We are definitely further along because that is needing to be weeded out. Our arrows are a little further than they were before. Let's see how far are we. Ooh, wow, that's gotten pretty far. Now that's only 4 hours. Most of our crops are going to take around 8 to get fully done with when we don't have enhancements like, say, our increased crop rate. Now with 3 arrows, we can watch this thing, and it should be ticking by pretty significantly. With this, we'll be able to get 9 leeks before the end of a full day. 8 hours later, we should most assuredly have this. And by going through and gathering up those items, we get some grasses and we get some straw, which are not terrible, but it's certainly not going to make a big dent in things. We can get workers to do that job better. Now, you'll still see here, tea is really chugging along slowly. It is not a crop that is worth you growing as the main character. Rice is definitely alright. You can tell that this is going to be I planted it in the morning or in the evening and I walked away, and then it's going to do its job, and it's going to go pretty well. But as far as yields are concerned, and these two are considered both fast, and you can tell why, taro is going to be a lot like tea and not go so fast for us. You can tell that a lot of these, it is set and forget. Once you do the fertilizing and the watering, it is just set, forget, come back later. And then you can harvest them with a comma. Now, some of them don't look like they should be able to be harvested with a comma, but honestly, they all can be. Even your vegetables, you can run through with a comma and grab them and go. With that, we have covered everything. Now, what do you use these things for? Well, that's where the meals come into play. And all of the meals are going to be on the screen now with their different unlocks. And as you can see, there are a few that you just start off with, which are considered, I call them base, which means that you get it from the start. Other ones you have to get unlocks with, and certain ones have certain requirements for what they need to be cooked with. As you can see, the cooking pot for a number of these. The really good ones do require a cooking pot. And of course, cooked rice, honestly, it is the winner overall every single time. Now, as you're doing this, you may note that some of your recipes require other ingredients that could be found throughout the area, or you can have a worker get. Your Forager's hut is going to take care of some of these needs for you. Here's how you can look at the Forager's hut's contributions for you. That they can gain you berries during the summertime, which is great, and mushrooms during various seasons. The poison type are always twice as much as your edible types. And your edible types obviously are needed for meals, and your poisonous types can be used for potions or for other items like that. Let's see here. As you go, you may also note you can get eggs from your Forager hut, which you can get 66 of them, which can go towards some of your meals, but honestly, it's not the biggest thing. Lotus is a fun thing to grow in the sense that it looks pretty, and it can be nice as a decoration, I think, in a water pond that is strategically placed around certain temple portions. I think that that can be a beautiful feature that you make, but as far as yields are concerned, I find that if you just go purchase it from someone in Aratane, you're going to come out ahead. And lotus root is fantastic for making burn ointment, which is my go-to strategy for medicine in the early game before you have access to some of the better technologies. All it requires are lotus roots and water. Obviously, your Excellent meals are going to require a tavern, which is a long ways away in the unlocks, so that one is a little distant in your ability to reach. But once you get there, you'll have all the technologies that lead into it, and it'll be the way you solve your problems. Some of your excellent meals you can see here are gotten through quest lines. For example, the one that's taken from the wild hogs. So as you can see, in the majority of these cases, the villagers are really the ones that should do the work. The only ones that kind of have a nice feel to them are that gobo grows fast, which means you can get a good collection of gobo if you're looking to be a farmer and plant them. They can go quick for you. Gobo, leek, and parsley are fast growers, which are fantastic for you as a character to grow, just because you know you're going to get throughput for them. You know you're going to produce enough quick enough that it's worth your time. I think soybeans are worth it as the main character to plant as well, because it's one of those few crops that you definitely produce more of than your villagers do, at least as of this update. Wheat and a number of the other ones are they're too slow for your main character, so I avoid them, and my villagers can do a better job. And in a lot of cases, it's unfortunate too, because your villagers will get better yields, like you saw with, like you can see here with wasabi and garlic and ginger. Your herbs, your villagers get 13 of them per single plot, whereas you get 9. Not a good win for you. The last one that I think is very much worth your time is canola in the summertime, because it's fast, and you do get a great yield out of it and gives you good resources. Herbs are beneficial for you because they are in a lot of your cooked meals, and also they're in a lot of your remedies. So in early game, those can be handy, and all you need is water to be able to take care of that. Alrighty, bonus tips just from parts of the things that have happened here. Number 1, clearing out Sengoku is a handy thing to do just because it starts you off with so much. 112 planks, 246 sticks, 65 charcoal. I got about 3 bamboo and 106 straw and a lot of rocks and other things, and a merchant right next door to me. These are handy things to get as I clear out Sengoku, and I can start a village right away, even within the first spring. And keep in mind, I may be on day 5, but that's because I was taking my time making sure I can make this place look decent, and also have all of the resources that I needed to show you all what's going on, as in having a lot of cash. The next thing is, if you want to make terraced fields, it is gorgeous and a lot of fun. I've done a terraced fields video before, but I do want to just show you real quick since you're here. Let's start out by finding a space. Now, this is not an ideal location. I think this will look a little silly, but the point of what I want to do here is just show you the effect and show you how it can be. We'll build our first field down, and then we kind of have to gauge where the next one goes, make it line up nicely. It does help to have an area where it doesn't go too steep too fast, because one of the problems you do run into is that when you build these, if it's too steep and it goes too fast, then you won't be able to actually build the proper terracing and make it look nice. Like this is going to tell me that lack of flat terrain is going to block our placement. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do just that high, and then let's build this out. Now the alignment gets to be tricky, and honestly, a lot of times I find myself having to restart it. You can right click anytime to cancel what you started, and then you can get another triad. There we go. Let's see if we can make this one work out. I'll put it out to here. Now, from here, our last level, let's do 3 tiers. I think it'd look kind of nice like that. Let's see what we can get away with. Ooh, it does say lack of flat terrain. So again, that's one of those issues we can run into, is that if it's too steep too fast, we can't actually make the thing. You can kind of get away with it by trying to just build smaller pieces and seeing if you can avoid that chunk that's too much. Which this is okay, but that breaking apart portion here, I don't tend to like that look. Now obviously, this is not going to be perfect, but we do want to make something beautiful out of this area. Ooh, just missed it. See, right here, that little bit is holding us from having this thing line up right. So we use this as our guide, and we'll build in this way. We can get it right. And I missed that one tree. Alright, now let's give this our last shot here and see what we can get out of this. There we go. We can only get to there, so I would like to have finished that out, and I think what I'd do is I'd tear down that one in the middle, and I'd build it back out. So from here, it is a little silly. We're on the beach. Obviously, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but just to show you the idea about how you can make these things look like they're terraced, I find this to be a beautiful way to organize your water fields for rice crops or other crops. Well, this is kind of the look I was going for. You can only make a water plot that has to be 2 by 2 that is, so it kind of is interesting to look at. I'm sure you all will have better ideas with this. I am only okay at the decorating, but I hope that this video has been helpful for you, and I hope you enjoy this. Take care, and enjoy farming in Sengoku Dynasty.